also beautiful. And the reason it looks so good is because of her pathways. Like that is the trick that she did. Her hardscape totally makes her garden game. She did a really good job on those edges. And so to maintain them, you can maintain it with a weed eater. And I mean, her garden is high maintenance, but really it doesn't have to be. You can use mostly a weed eater. The weed eater is your friend when you're doing this type of landscaping. So one of the ways you get biodiversity in your landscape is layering. So you don't just have to have one plant in one place. You can have all kinds of layers. And this is actually a concept stolen from permaculture, because permaculture is about growing food forests, and you can grow lots of different food in one spot. So some of y'all may be familiar with this concept if you're familiar with permaculture. It's absolutely transferable to native plant gardening as well. You can grow more than one plant in one place, and all of this is going to help the healthy ecosystem thrive. And you don't want to forget about your soil microbes and your fungus. That's a very important part of these layers. And then as far as maintenance goes, I think that people, when they're starting to do their gardening and they're starting to do native plant gardening, they kind of freak out about the maintenance and they don't know what to do. But you can pretty much simplify the process. Oh, am I not standing in front of the camera? Should I be in front of the camera?
No, don't worry.
Okay, I just realized poor people on Zoom.
I don't have the slides, so.
Oh, you don't have the slides?
They're seeing that.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, people on Zoom, for your patience. But yeah, so basically, if you have a question about what something is, like that's the first thing, is you just want to be IDing everything in your garden. If you have questions like, should I pull it or should I plant it? Use iNaturalist. That's the best plant ID app. I also like to use Picture This and cross-reference. So you can use multiple ones and cross-reference. Nothing is going to be the end all be all, like this is definitely what it is, but iNaturalist is a community. So they're verifying it. The experts in your region are verifying that ID. So you can get pretty confident about what your plant ID is. And that confidence is going to make you confident about what you should do next, because that's going to tell you where this is native and if it's invasive. So that's going to help you decide. So that's just the first step that you need to do. I'm sure a lot of y'all already are familiar with that. Mulching is important, and you don't have to use actual mulch. You can use green mulch, which is plants. I like to use horse herb and frog fruit. And you're going to be trying to keep try not to take material off the property and import material onto the property. Try to keep as much of that on the property as possible. So your compost is going to happen on site, hopefully. I understand we're in an urban area, so you can make some compromises there. And then again, your weed eater is your friend. It will help you keep those neat edges and signal to your neighbors that you are maintaining the space. And don't be afraid to make mistakes, because your mistakes are just lessons. I wanted to go into tree pruning. A lot of us already have a lot of knowledge, especially if you've taken NLCP, you have a lot of knowledge about tree care. Basically, leave the leaves, make sure you're mulching properly. So we don't want to be doing these mulch volcanoes. Okay, we want to have it spread out. Wherever the tree branches are, that's where the roots are, and that's where you want to be mulching. For some of y'all who caught our excellent speaker at Wiles Kids Workshop, this is absolutely review. I don't know if she talked about the 3-cut method, but this is really important. I actually just saw I just had a great example of what happens when they don't do this. And I wish I had put it on my slide, but I'll try to explain it. But basically, for your first cut is going to be under, so you want to leave a little bit of a branch collar, basically. And outside of that, you're going to make your first cut, and that's going to be underneath your cut, a little bit away from where your final cut's gonna be. And then your second cut is when you cut the branch off, and that's gonna be to get the weight off. And then your third cut is your final cut to leave the branch collar. And basically the reason you have to do this first cut here is because if you don't and you just cut the branch all the way down, it might split and leave a big open gash. I hope that makes sense. It's really hard to explain without visuals, so I'll try to add that to my presentation in the future so that people can see the actual gash that it can make if you split it. So that's why you make that first cut, so that if it does start splitting, it ends right there on that cut. And then you make your final cut and all the weight is gone, so it's not gonna split like that. And then native plant nurseries, where to get your nurseries. There's plenty of nurseries that sell Texas natives. You just have to be really careful and know the genus and species and make sure that you're asking, because some nurseries, I'd love to name names, but I'm not going to. I'm resisting the temptation. They say it's native and it's not. But these ones right here are your go-tos. They're gonna definitely have natives and exclusively local natives, and they're gonna actually be educated about what that means. I mean, not exclusively, like, you know, people sell herbs and stuff, but they're gonna know and they're gonna tell you. And then this is, I mean, I'm going a little bit long, so I was just plugging a few of my favorite plants. Basically, don't forget to plant for the winter season. A lot of people forget that. And these are two of my favorites. Possum Haw and Yopon are great for the winter season. But also cherry laurel, coralberry, and Virginia sweetbriar, going back to those evergreens. And then also a lot of people think, oh, I can't have any blooms. I can't have a showy garden. I have all shade. Actually, you can absolutely have beautiful specimens such as beautyberry, false indigo bush, buckeye, Mexican plum, and elderberry. And plant things, if you are a notorious plant murderer like me, plant things that can grow on a sidewalk crack. Gaillardia, Salvia coccinea, can't get enough of that. Frog fruit, wine cup, and rudbeckia. And then, of course, do not forget your graminoid game. Make sure you have sedges and grasses. Well, actually, if Linda is here and if we can convince her, she has an entire presentation about native grasses. But yeah, thank you. That's all I have for you. Y'all have been a wonderful audience, and we can do questions at the very end unless anybody has some pressing questions. But yeah, we'll get into Doreen. Good standby as we work out our technical changes. I wish I knew. Oh, Wally, you have jokes. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but you know so many jokes. You have good jokes. I'm like,
I just want to make sure everyone knows that we have on NPSOT.org a native plant database that you can search and create your own list. It is made out of the plant list that all the chapters have created for their NLCP classes. So they are the plants that were selected primarily for use in landscapes. So it's a really great tool for that. And if you may have taken level 3 a while back, it was revised recently and it has more about pruning and more about soil science and some things like that. So you might want to consider taking it again. Can actually take it this weekend, by the way, and that Mercer over here. It's not too late if there's space available.
nice, thank you, Linda. And yeah, I forgot to say that the NLCP created a plant list by ecoregion. Definitely check that out on the website. It's a great resource. I look at it like every day.
All right, yeah, and I like that it has plant width or spread where a lot of resources online don't, and that's what I always want to know. I mean, you get an idea of how tall it is, but how much room do I need to leave between plants? It's a personal struggle. Anyway, thank you, Reba. If you guys don't know me, I'm Doreen Gallevo. I've been on, this is my second year on the board. I've been a member off and on of NPSOT for more years than that, but I have a 7-year-old, so there was a little hiatus there. She was younger. Where, do you want me to stand somewhere in particular?
Somewhere over there is
Somewhere
good.
over here.
Just not with the screen between you and the camera
Okay,
because
okay.
that's good.
Okay, thank you for all those watching, I think. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about my journey with natives. I don't know how far along all of you are with your journey with native plants, how much landscaping you do with them in your homes. I know Lucy, I see Lucy in the audience, she's all in and she's got a whole yard full of natives, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. But yeah, she's a little more the wild kind. I'm gonna skip through this. I left it in here because this was developed for a garden association that did not know a lot about natives already. So this was just kind of an overview. So again, the definition of native, we just covered this already. And there are a lot of arguments if you get on some of the websites or the Facebook groups about what is really native, and people get really worked up over these things, but for our definition, we're just talking about things that were here prior to European settlement. You guys probably know all these things, but we're supporting wildlife and it's better for the planet. Did y'all know that it's better for your own health as well? Grass doesn't do a whole lot for us. We have a whole lot of grass in our landscapes. But these plants with more biomass, they sequester carbon, they release oxygen, they actually cool the environment. You've seen all of the heat island work that Jaime Gonzalez has done with the Nature Conservancy. So it's really improving all of our own health as well. And of course, wildlife, but is anybody not familiar with this concept here? And then Reba had that as well. And that's just about the human health. So I started with gardening, wanted to grow a vegetable garden when we bought our first house. It's also the first summer of drought in 2011, so it was a rough year to try to start gardening. But after doing some gardening with vegetables, I thought I wanted to trap some butterflies. So I started adding some fennel and non-native host plants, trying to get some butterflies in my garden because I thought they were pretty. And then I thought, you know, I started hearing about natives, and this photo is courtesy of my friend Kimberly, who loved to post these on Facebook of her relaxing her garden. I thought that's what it must be like if you garden with natives, right? They don't require any work, right? Spoiler alert, they do, but it's a little different kind of work. But as I learned more about natives, and then I learned about all the benefits to natives and all the trouble that our ecosystems are in, I kind of thought it was a little more important. Our world is in trouble, our environment is in trouble. So I can't do anything about our divided political systems or a whole lot of other problems in the world, but I can plant natives and I can talk other people into it. I can't talk other people into voting or doing other things that are good for our society, but I can do native plants. So when we bought our second house, this is what the backyard looked like. It did have solar panels, which was cool. We bought it that way, but you can see, this has a picture, right? Well, you can see we had, these were pittosporums, very leggy and overgrown pittosporums. We never did get rid of the boxwoods. They drove me nuts on the sidewalk. But the first thing I did was cut down those pittosporums. And then my daughter was young in these days, but gardening became my therapy for getting out of the house and having some mom time. I started working from home when she was born, so I needed some social outlets, and gardening's not social, but I did talk to the plants and the critters a lot. But I started kind of sheet mulching one little section at a time, and this is a do as I say, not as I do. This was not a very effective method that I started with, but that's what I had time for, so that's what I did. And then eventually I got a little bit better about actually sheet mulching in big sections. But I wasn't very good at planning. I would take pictures of where I thought I was gonna lay things out, and then I'd draw the pictures. And my ugly spreadsheet there is actually how I tried to start laying them out, because I just bought plants that I liked, and then I thought, well, what am I gonna do with them? I had to figure out where to put them. So this is not the right way, but this is how I started. So now we've got a new house. About 3 years ago, we moved so that we were in a better school district for our daughter. And you can see this is how it usually goes when I garden. My dog is watching out the window. He's ever present with my shadow. So this was the new house. We had Bradford pears in the front. There was a struggling crepe myrtle in the middle of the west side there, and some leggy Esperanza and some struggling azaleas. Nothing was very happy in the landscape. So first thing we did was cut down the Bradford pear trees. If y'all don't know, they are one of the worst weeds in Southeast US. They're incredibly invasive. And after we cut them down, the company that cut them down did grind the stumps, but on the right side of the screen, those are all suckers coming up from the roots.
Oh.
That was the bane of my existence for a good year. One spring, I got sick of them, because I started just mowing them. I didn't do it. And so we got them cut down in July. The next spring, they drove me so nuts. I spent probably 10 or 15 hours one week. Every morning I would go out there and I would dig up roots. And ended up being a little gratifying, so I was very angry. These Bradford pear suckers, but they were nuts. It was just a sea of Bradford pear babies, and that area is still lumpy, but we're getting better now. So that's what it looked like in 2021. I wanted a jump start. I did a lot of stuff on my own at our old house, but I didn't want to wait that long, the new house, so we hired Thomas Taylor. If y'all haven't worked with him, he's fabulous. He did all of our foundation plantings in our west side garden, and that's what it looks like now. Well, last year, I haven't taken very good pictures this year. It's been ugly outside. So I've planted some new trees. I've got a Hercules club, a Mexican plum, a parsley hawthorn, and then just to the right is a redbud, and a big native landscape, a big pocket prairie here, and on the right side is a rain garden. This is one of my favorite pictures. It doesn't look like that now because it's been a rough year, but rock rose and massive coreopsis and some switchgrass behind it. That switchgrass is massive now, y'all. It is way taller than I am and trying to fall all over the place, but Beryl was not friendly to the gardens this year. And then I started tinkering on my own. So this, I call my hell patch. It's like 17 by 12 or something like that. It's pretty good size. But when we moved in, I think there used to be a tree there. And someone volcano mulched it, and then the tree died because there was a big hump hole in the middle of it. And it was covered with King Ranch blue stem, which is invasive. And every time I had to mow it, it was like going up the hill from the street and then down into the bump and over the sidewalk, and I hated it. So spring of 2023, I started digging, and I still have a pile of dirt to get rid of behind my dumpster. I tried to level it a little bit, at least to take the big hump out of it and the big lump, even though I don't need to mow it anymore. And I planted it. And then just a year later, that's May of 2024, all those black-eyed Susans went crazy.
Yeah.
They're a little dry and crunchy looking now, but now my fragrant mistflower is starting to bloom, and there's a lantana in there that you can kind of see some orange in here. That is like all the way out here now, one lantana plant in the middle, and it's like reaching to all the edges, and it's going crazy too. So just a year's time and can make a big difference. So, and then I try to use plants for solutions for things in the garden. I hope I don't get myself in trouble with thinking plants can do more than they really can, because sometimes you really do need grading and drainage systems. But this is a low area between our house and our neighbor's house, and every time it rained, water would sit there. So I thought, wow, well, I bet some plants would soak up that water. So I don't think I didn't. I started off with just a little oval in the middle. I think I had a beautyberry that didn't make it, and some seaside goldenrod, and airwood viburnum, I think. I started off just one little oval, and then just like before, I would add a section at a time. But eventually I dug out a big rain trench And that red dotted line there is kind of a bowl in the middle of it, so, water does collect there, and it still runs off the sidewalk a little bit, but it slows it down, soaks a lot of it up, and it does collect some water, and I have some cool things growing there now. So just some getting started tips. I think you guys have probably already all started, but just making sure, like Reba said, you put the right plant in the right place. And just assess the conditions to figure that out. These are one of my favorite little caterpillars, the pipevine swallowtail, the woolly pipevine. And Reba talked about these as well. And these are some of the things that inspired me. I think St. Julian's Crossing was instrumental in my motivation and inspiration in getting started with natives, following her. And I also take lots of nerdy pictures of my critters and my plants. I think, is anything on here new to anybody? No. Yeah.
Can you repeat whatever she said?
Yeah, Linda said there's actually a landscaping with Texas Native Plants Facebook group that NPSOT helps administer now. There's another one that I'm an admin on called Growing Texas Natives. There's two because the previous one went dark when the previous owner had health issues, I think, and she was off the market for like 8 months. So we started a new one and then she came back and now we have two. Yeah. Yeah, there's several Facebook groups, Texas Native Plant Exchange, there's a Texas Seed and Plant group too. I forget exactly what that one's called, but there's a lot of groups on Facebook where you can find information and where you can find people that have plants. I know I've personally posted plenty of times on those that the frog fruit's out of control, please come get some. Or whatever else. I dig up plants from my path all the time and share them with people on groups like that. So I think that is all that I had planned. You guys want to hear about grasses from Linda?
Yeah.
Yeah? Or do you have questions for Reba or I on the first part of our presentations?
Any questions? Y'all, both of these presentations were made for civic association. So they're not really people in this room, but like it was so much fun to do the presentation. That's right.
So, one of the things I've discovered with some of the fall bloomers is they have a tendency to get very, very tall and late. And so I found if I cut them way back in like July, then they're more manageable in the fall. I planted a Maximilian sunflower and it's doing the same thing. Can I cut that back like way back, like in July, and it will not sprawl like it's doing?
Yeah, I would cut it before it starts blooming, once it gets buds, and might mess with the,
Oh, I'm talking
Methodology a
about
little bit
really
more.
like middle of summer.
yeah, if it's not, when they don't bloom until later in the summer. I did that with mine as a test this year. I should have done it a little sooner before the stems got really thick, because they do get big. But when they get tall like that, they lean over. You can also work on plant density to work on that. Unless you just don't want them so tall. Like if you think about a prairie, it's not just one plant by itself. There's grasses surrounding it, and they're in a whole little plant community, so they hold each other up. But you can absolutely cut just about anything back in the spring to keep it a little denser.
I cut my goldenrod back and then I switch it out and it goes up and then now it's really heavy because it's all.
Yeah,
Can you repeat that?
yeah. Linda said she cut hers down and it fell over and grew up, but it's really heavy on top. I think the storms that we had earlier in the year were really rough on things. A lot of my stuff laid down. In the spring, I had the most beautiful year of swamp sunflower I've had. It hadn't bloomed yet, but it was filling in this nice patch. It was dense and standing up straight. And then Hurricane Beryl came through and it all went down, and now it's kind of like going every direction. It's blooming now, so it's pretty, but it's not quite the happy little community that it was in the spring before Beryl hit, so. Yes.
And so, how many lockers, 1 gallon plants, was that to create that beautiful burn?
Yeah, the question was how many pots of rock rose did it take to create that image that I showed you? Believe it or not, there was a path in the middle of the rock rose. On each side of the path, I think there were 3 on one side and 4 on the other. So a pretty fair amount, but it's just beautiful. And the landscape coreopsis is a short-lived perennial, so those have diminished a bit, and then they've started to come back with the smaller plants are growing. So that's another thing it's a good lesson in your native garden is to not expect it to be the same every year, because these are plants and they evolve and they reseed and things grow and it's always changing, which is kind of exciting if you don't mind embracing the change, but it's going to be a little different all the time.
Any other questions? Okay, is Milton Canchino here? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, so we can hear from Linda about native grasses.
How do you use that?
Did you put it on this computer? Oh, on his? Oh, okay. So we need to put it on this computer.
And, okay, because he's first down and then this space for us. Okay, here.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I think I have that from live. I'll take a picture of it and send it to you, but mine's just blooming because I don't really water and it's low, but it's got little bit.
I didn't see the comment. Can I get a picture of the extra grasses?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Since we're like at a moment where we're down from talking. Yay, that's it.
Grasses?
Yes, it is. Yes. Okay, all right, so, native grasses, yeah, all right, I think I know how to admit this. Maybe, no, oh, that's the show, okay, great. So benefits of native grasses, they provide food and shelter for birds, and dragonflies use, the grass stems as perches, and you really want to find out how to grow dragonflies in your yard because they eat mosquitoes. They're really the mosquito eater, and they catch like 90% of what they're going after. So they're very efficient killers of mosquitoes. So you should have dragonflies. Okay, insects, lizards, frogs, and toads, they all use grass clumps as shelter, and particularly in winter. And of course, native grasses are food host plants for butterflies and moths. And we have that great page on, what's host plants are for butterflies. Anyway, and also the birds use the grass seed for food. So Texas has more than 470 native grass species, and, you know, some sources say more than that. It's a state with the most native grass species, and, before European settlement, grassland covered about 2/3 of Texas. So, and of course, invasive and introduced species have, harmed, you know, the native species. So here's shade tolerant grasses: inland sea oats, narrow-leaved wood oats, Virginia wild rye, eastern gamma grass, and side oat scramble. So inland sea oats, this is inland sea oats right here. It's tall because it was in the shade, but it can be smaller and it's pretty tolerant. It likes, it usually grows along rivers and in wet areas, but, I have a really dry yard and it grows there. And then I love this one. This is narrow-leaf wood oats. And I think Houston Audubon is growing it. But if you go into woods somewhere, you'll see this narrow-leaf wood oats here and there. And it's related to this one. Yeah. Anyway, Virginia wild rye. Oh, I could have brought one. Yeah. Okay. It's a larger plant with the bristle like that. And again, if you go in forests near here, you'll see this, and all the way up to like Austin, you'll see it, the Virginia wild rye. And then eastern gamma grass, it's tolerant of shade, and it can grow in sun or shade. And it establishes an area. It's definitely a perennial grass. So side oat grama is our state grass. And you may have seen it here along a bio, or, you know, it's definitely more common in some parts of the state than others. So the big four prairie grasses, big blue stem, little blue stem, Indian grass, and switchgrass. Huh?
What's the big?
Well, I don't know. I didn't name it.
Four benchmark species of the prairie.
Yeah, it's the main, it's what makes up a good prairie, probably, yeah. Anyway, so how many of y'all have one of these? Yeah? I definitely have the Indian grass. It's really pretty. It's a very nice ornamental grass. It's tall, of course, but I don't mind.
Does that have a core?
Oh,
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so big blue stem. I've heard a lot of people say it's hard to grow, and then I've met some people who say it's really easy. So anyway, it's definitely doable, but it's a tall grass that tolerates damp soil, and it does best in full sun. And then, of course, little blue stem. Here's a little blue stem that's kind of going to seed there. I got those that are all tied up at the Wildscape Sports Shop. Yeah, and anyway, I have a place for them. Yeah. Anyway, Indian grass, it's really pretty, and a nice ornamental grass. And anyway, switchgrass. You got to be careful with switchgrass. They have a lot of cultivars, and maybe some are kind of aggressive and not so great.
Gallevo.
Yeah. Anyway, so cool season grasses. These are great. Little barley, just a little brush kind of a plant. I have a picture. Anyway, Canada wild rye and Texas wintergrass, Scribner dicanthelium. How many of y'all know what a dicanthelium is? You should know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's distinctive. It's rosette grass. Yeah. Anyway, so here's little barley. It just grows in the spring. You can have it in some grass, some area, the low mowed kind of area of your yard, and it'll just be there in the spring and be a little short grass, and then come back the next year. I like it. Yeah. Anyway, so Canada wild rye, it has longer. I don't know if these pictures really illustrate it well, but the Canada wild rye has longer yeah, and they can get pretty fancy, and I know that I see that more often when I go to Austin, the Canada. Anyway, so here's dicanthelium. It's like a little explosion of seeds. And if you've ever seen that like that, that is dicanthelium. Anyway, there are several varieties of it around here. Anyway, so ornamental grasses. This is Gulf Muley, and it's really a great color. It doesn't show it here. And this isn't really in full bloom like it can be. Oh, but I have a picture. Anyway, here you go.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Oh.
It's a great grass that you can use as an ornamental, so nice. Anyway, and then sugarcane plume grass.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Sometimes if you're driving around, you'll see that off in some field somewhere. It'd be nice if a lot of this stuff was actually protected, like in our parks and things, to where you could actually see these things. You know? Anyway, it gets to be like 10 feet tall. It's really a great grass.
We have.
This is not bristlegrass. It's kind of a short grass, but sometimes along the freeways, it'll get going and it'll blow in the wind and it's shiny and pretty. And anyway, if you know what it is, you know, you can recognize it and see that it grows in mass along certain areas. Anyway, so plant native grasses, they can be gorgeous when in bloom. They add graceful texture to landscapes. They can be planted in large containers as accents or be planted in mass over acres of land. They prevent erosion and improve soil. They have extensive fibrous root systems that can go down 17 feet or more. And they can be cut, mowed, or left alone. For continuous color, you can plant wildflowers along with the grasses for spring and summer color until your grasses bloom in the fall. And they'll be especially colorful in October, and your landscape will be ever changing and richly diverse. And I think that is all I have. But I'm going to add to it a lot of great grass species. And I know I go out in spring and look at all the new things with spring, like bluets and things. And, you know, and then it's good to see the early spring blooming grasses. But when I was doing this, I really couldn't easily find some of the little native early spring grasses that I like to see. So I'm going to add that to this. Plus, I'm going to add more information about each specific plant, you know, and this. So if I give it again, it won't be the same.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna add sedges, yeah, and
Yeah.
grass-like things, yeah.
Yeah, that was for the
Yeah.
grammar nerds.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have for y'all. Were we gonna do door prizes with the, yes.
There's a question like,
Oh.
with your presentation, is the
Uh-huh.
slideshow going to be available?
Sure, there's a question, is the slideshow gonna be available? I can make the slideshow available.
And Doreen and Linda?
I mean, they'd have to like join our Slack, like how would we make it available? I guess we could put it on our,
That's
on
a
our
separate,
website.
Yeah, well, we can post the presentation.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll post the presentation on our YouTube channel. And then, oh, hi. I don't know how we get it to you and how you know, which is join our Slack and email me at rwiles104@gmail.com
Or our chapter email.
or nphouston1@gmail.com. I'll try to see if we can get that typed in the chat too, and you can email us for our presentation, but we'll try to get it on the website, no promises. But yeah, mine is in our Slack channel. So if you join our Slack channel, you can have my presentation, and I'm sure we can convince Doreen to put hers on and Linda to put hers on. But yeah, that's all we have for you. Should we just do a mad dash for the plan? Oh, but not in the blue. Is the blue?
Yeah, if they want to give a donation.
Yeah, but not all of them are available. So let's,
Well, they are, the ones there.
oh, you pulled the ones? Okay, so if you want to give a donation, you can give from the blue, but the rest, those two,
That
there's
gorgeous
a beautyberry
right
and a
there.
fringe tree. The gorgeous beautyberry, you need to give a donation. The less gorgeous beautyberry is free. But yeah, thanks. Enjoy the night. Thank you everyone on Zoom. And yeah, we'll see y'all in November. Y'all have a good night. Yeah, for the plant swap, bring a dish to share and bring your local native plants and seeds. And yeah. Thank you, everyone. Linda. Yeah. I think she wanted that.
You all did the door prizes early, huh?
We didn't really
That's
do
what
door
I'm-
prizes.